Okay, so Seagate, you have fairly recently published your Decarbonizing Data report, and I guess in simple terms, it looked at sustainability challenges for data centers, particularly with AI gaining momentum. So yeah, just give us a little bit of background to the report if you can.
Thanks, Philip. It's a great opportunity to talk about the size and scale of data centers and how data storage can help with the challenges that those data center providers are faced with. As we think about our value in the data center and what we can do to help, data is the first part that comes to mind, and therefore storing it, retaining it, and being able to do so efficiently is critically important. What's happening now is the power usage within all of the new compute infrastructure that's being created is growing in its consumption need and model. And therefore, it's asking all of the other players and participants within the data center ecosystem to really double down and focus on things that are most important and what they can do to help with sustainability. Storage is no different than any other component that we're taking that very seriously in the data center environment. So we're working on power efficiency and delivering bigger drives, larger capacity hard drives with a better watt per terabyte so that that precious power can go elsewhere in the data center and you can still store all of your information. And so our core technology, Mosaic, and us being able to build bigger hard drives built on the back of that Mosaic technology is what's leading us through the transition to bigger drives and into more AI workloads that are power hungry in the data center.
Yeah, so as you explained there, energy usage seems to be the major concern for, I guess, the majority of sort of business leaders and clearly, obviously, data center owners, operators in particular. And I can't remember, I think the predictions are, is it 1.5% of the world's electricity is now consumed by data centers, and that's likely to at least double, I think, before the end of the decade. So that's quite an increase. And also AI spurring demand for data storage. So I guess the power demands of storage is going to increase similarly as well. Just your thoughts, I suppose, as to how big this problem might become, if you like.
Well, it's super exciting in the fact that what's being observed now is that people want to study information and data and turn it into valuable insights and create more value from it. So what that's creating is larger files, more copies of those files, and then longer retention of those files. And so therefore, now as architects of data storage devices and supporting customers building data centers globally, we have a seat at the table, and we have to make sure that the optimization of that device is really well understood and how it interacts with compute and networking, the layout of the management of power and thermals in all of the buildings to make sure that they can not only analyze all the information, but then ultimately store it and retain it for future use, future access, future model development, future use cases. We think that this is an incredible opportunity to see data growth really come up to speed. And when you mentioned like, hey, power is growing rapidly, depending on which report you look at around the world, it's as much as doubled. And you can see some specific geos where it could consume as much as 10% of the total available power in the region. And it's just continuing to grow at rapid rates. Therefore, all companies now that are interacting with data centers are making power efficiency and sustainability more and more of a topic in the buying process, not just the nice to have as an afterthought.
Okay, so I think the report uncovered that clearly everyone is concerned or aware of the environmental impact of what's going on, but maybe not as many as could or should be are prioritizing this when it comes to purchasing decisions. Is that changing gradually? What are your thoughts as to when some traditionally, obviously, it was cheapest kind of wins out, etc. Then sort of TCO got involved, and where are we now? I suppose is sustainability a key metric when it comes to purchasing, or still not as prioritized as it should be?
It's a great question to think about. There's two parts to it. One, the wallet decides many things in terms of buying behavior. Like in the end, the CFO still has to sign off on, hey, we're deploying a product, we're deploying a service. How much does it cost? How profitable will it be? Great news on that is hard drives are incredibly cost effective, and we continue to keep a separation in that cost effectiveness between other storage devices with our areal density innovations. But now, in addition to that, I think because of the scale of these deployments, companies are looking beyond just acquisition price. You use the word total cost of ownership. That one's super important. They look at what does it actually cost to make the device. So the factories that are producing the product consume power, have chemicals that are needed. There's an embodied carbon aspect to the manufacturing and the full life cycle of what it takes to bring a storage device or a compute device or a networking device into the data center. That's now part of that TCO equation. How much of your power at your factories are renewable energy? What kinds of materials are you using? Are you creating recycled content going back into your devices? And then how much energy does it actually take to make the device itself? Those are all things that Seagate has been thinking about for many years now, with our factories already paving the way on renewable energy usage. And we're already creating recycled content coming into our hard drives that are going back into the field, which is great. And in addition to that, our efficiency of how to make the devices very, very lean and therefore very effective for these large applications.
Okay, and I guess alongside that consideration for the sort of life cycle management from, as you say, the manufacture use and what happens maybe at end of life. There's also, I guess, storage tiering, tiered storage, whatever you call it. That's been around for quite a while. But again, do you think your average end users, should such a person exist, do they have a as accurate a handle on what data belongs where as they need to, particularly bearing in mind that, you know, whether it's SSDs, hard disks, or even tape maybe has a place as to understand where is the most sustainable place to keep data, as well as obviously the most cost effective, if you like.
It's always important for someone who's deploying an application to think about when they're going to need information, how they're going to interact with that information, and how long they're going to need to retain that information. We continue to work with ecosystems, customers, and partners to make sure that data is placed at the right location to meet that need. We've always been an advocate and a champion for getting the right device at the right place and getting those devices to work together as seamless as possible. We help our largest customers with data tiering, how we manage data flow, how we are able to optimize cost and performance at different places in the data lifecycle to create value and help them understand how to optimize their deployment. No change in that behavior. I would say more emphasis on implementing that eloquently, because of the fact that now with workloads and application development happening so rapid on AI, now you have to pay attention to it at the beginning. If you go ahead and deploy something new and it takes off and can scale so fast, and you didn't think about how you were going to design and scale your architecture at the beginning, you get caught holding a pretty expensive infrastructure. So I think a lot of developers and business owners and customers that we interact with are taking the time on the front end to go through and say, great, we maybe have a petabyte today. What happens when we have an exabyte? What happens when we have tens of exabytes or larger? And so they're designing that architecture to make sure that it can scale and have the right amount of SSDs, the right amount of HDDs for their use case.
Okay, and in terms of sort of other aspects of the report, I think it highlights potentially significant barriers to sustainability in the data center. So, bearing in mind everyone theoretically sort of understands what's required, what are the sort of things that are preventing them or making them think before they maybe go down that sustainability route?
There's two parts to think about in that one, Philip. I think the first one is, we touched on earlier, acquisition cost and what does it take to say you're committed to having a process that can create the lowest embodied carbon solution. Upfront, there are some costs that are required to make sure you have renewables, make sure you have a healthy supply chain, make sure that everything that can be recycled is being recycled and used in the new products. That's kind of on the front end. And then once you've bought, purchased, deployed, and used the material, there's the what do you do when you're done with it question. We continue to see that there are a number of individuals that are concerned about the data that's on the devices themselves and a trust of whether or not they can securely and cryptographically erase that material and then redeploy those storage devices into other use cases. There are a number of large customers that are successfully adopting these trusted solutions to be able to take product that's maybe ready to be refreshed, or there's a TCO benefit to refresh that older product and go to the newer product in the data center, bring that product out, cryptographically erase it, clean it up, and allow someone else to use that product and propagate the need for more and more storage devices to retain more and more information globally. So it's kind of both a front-end acquisition and a back-end lifecycle redeployment, reuse type challenge that the customers are having to deal with.
Okay, and I think the report recommends that whereas at the moment maybe there's still a bit of a sort of choice, or seem to be a choice between cost or sustainability, recommending that there is the opportunity for both to be optimized, and no, there doesn't need to be a trade-off, if you like, between cost and sustainability, but you can achieve sort of both objectives equally well. Is that a fair sort of summary of the direction of travel?
We're getting to that direction. Exactly right. I believe now with the way data is being deployed globally, the requirements that are in place in different regions, as well as the size and scale of this infrastructure and all of the adherence to policy that's going to be required for a company to operate at that size and scale globally, the balance will occur that it's not just acquisition cost, but it ends up becoming acquisition cost plus sustainability that allows them to operate at scale. So I think we're very near that, and we're continuing to see more and more emphasis towards the two of those coming together as the final buying decision.
Okay, and in terms of how that might look, I think the report outlines three broad choices, which I guess the simplest, inverted commas, is trying to do more with the existing infrastructure. Then there's investing in expanding infrastructure footprint, and then there's the option to migrate to the cloud. So I guess my question would be, how easy is it for an organization? Clearly, everyone has slightly different operating circumstances, but in general terms, how easy is it to understand which of those options is going to make most sense, or is it not so straightforward?
We like to talk about meeting the customer where they are, hence why we're creating options at all three of those places. If you have a strong software team and the ability to manage your fleet at scale, Seagate's developing features to help the hard drive run longer. We have features where we can do variable capacity to allow maybe just turning off one head in the field rather than replacing the whole drive, allowing you to get full life cycle of the entire device rather than just a replacement model. So extending the life, creating features that are software driven, very easy to implement and deploy at scale if you have a strong software team. If you're not in that space where your business is full of software developers, then we're trying to say, hey, we're creating new devices and new technology that are much more efficient. Better dollar per terabyte, better watt per terabyte, lower embodied carbon per the deployment. So acquisition can help you improve your fleet through new devices. And then last but not least, the last part is we're always there to help with circularity and trusted mechanisms to erase and allow your devices to be reused or moved into other locations to continue to improve the lifecycle management of storage. So it really just becomes a choice of, if you have the ability to do all three, you can. And if you don't have that ability, Seagate is there to help you at each one of those places with features that can incrementally improve your deployment and your efficiency so that you can contribute to a more sustainable data sphere.
Okay, yeah. And so I think, I mean, I don't want to overlap too much, but I think that you recommend those three key pillars, which are technological innovation. I think you mentioned life cycle extension and then circularity, which you describe as shared accountability across the ecosystem. So it'd just be good perhaps to particularly focus on that when you say that. Is that from back to what you were saying earlier, that people want to know what it is that, you know, how you create the product, obviously then the use and then what happens to it end of life? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think about it as the full development. So as we're designing new products, we're thinking about how to make those products with new materials that are more efficient. How can we utilize as few rare earths as possible? Obviously, it's a magnetic hard drive storage device, so there are some rare earths involved. So we do a great job of making sure we're as efficient as possible with any and all resources that we consume. That's the manufacturing side, and we're very conscious of that, even more so now than we have been for the last 40 years. We make sure that our customers know that there's a supply chain aspect to this. When something is done with its life, it may be done for them, but it might not be done for another user of a storage device that could take advantage of that. It also means, how do we get that product from where it's being used today back into the hands of someone who can successfully turn that into new material and new product moving forward. Our supply chain is global, and there are locations around the globe where we're bringing product back to those sites to help with recycling and making sure that things don't end up in a landfill. That's going to become more and more important moving forward, either because the world is resource scarce. We want to make sure we reclaim as much of that as we can. And last but not least, I think overall it's about an ecosystem. Seagate has helped to develop shared venues where we can talk about solutions around security and deployment and circularity and innovation, so that users of storage are aware of those capabilities and competencies that we have, and get access to that information. Reports like this Decarbonizing Data report was one such example that we're doing to help contribute and make sure people are aware of what they can do as best practice.
Okay, so maybe, I mean, in summarizing, would you be an optimist that sustainability can remain a major focus, or do you slightly worry at all that, with this huge focus on AI, and as we know, the power consumption that goes alongside it, that there will have to be a slight rebalancing where sustainability takes second place to AI, or do you genuinely think that you can have sustainable AI, if you like? Is that a possible, an achievable concept?
I think that sustainability must be a part of it as good stewards of the earth, and ensuring that anything we implement is scalable globally. There's the short-term hype cycle of just figure out if we can do it, right? So that's where we're at right now with AI infrastructure. We need to build it. We need to make sure that it's there and that it's functional and capable and adding value. But as I said early on, people are thinking differently as they deploy this infrastructure. They're starting from the assumption that it's going to be huge. And so therefore, they're assuming that they know at some point they will be accountable to the impacts, to the geographies in which they operate in. So therefore, sustainability is part of the conversation. It's why they're looking at different energy sources, so many new energy sources being brought online that are clean. They're starting from a different base than previous infrastructure deployments. And therefore, I am hopeful and confident that sustainability will stay part of the conversation for the AI infrastructure to grow, for not only storage, but other components.
Okay, I mean, it's been fantastic to chat, and some brilliant insights into the report and your thoughts on data storage and how it's going to evolve in this new AI landscape. So Jason, really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Philip.